With the 100 Years Quest anime out right now of me recording this video, and more people jumping back onto Fairy Tail or just trying to catch up to Fairy Tail and then read 100 Years Quest and watch the anime, one common question from even before the anime came out that I've seen from people who haven't read the manga or have read the manga but are still kind of confused over the fact is, if the 5 Dragon Gods have been around for years at this point and on an entirely different continent, how has Acnologia not known about them, fought them, or beaten any of them? Especially if they are roughly as strong as he is. Now, first of all, I'm going to get into all these facts really quick and showcase why, for a multitude of reasons, Acnologia did not take out the Dragon Gods and how he couldn't fight for a lot of them. But also, I'm just going to throw out the fact that chances are, this is literally just a giant retcon on Fairy Tail Hiro Mashima's part, because definitely by the time he finished Fairy Tail, he did not have the concept of the Dragon Gods figured out and thought this was going to be the end of Fairy Tail. But once he started Eden Zero and was thinking about it and left Fairy Tail open-ended for the potential of a sequel, he came up with the idea of the Dragon Gods, their lore, and reasonings behind it. So, let's take the retcon aspect, throw it away because that's the boring answer, and let's go in for actual stuff that we see in the story that could explain why Acnologia did not either fight, find, or defeat any of the previous Dragon Gods, and even the Dragon Slayer guild known as Diablos. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps me, shows you guys enjoy the content I'm making on the channel and shows you want to see more. Now that out of the way, on to the video. So let's just nip one thing in the bud. Acnologia has fought at least one of the Dragon Gods before. Very also implied that he might have fought Ignia before as well based off of current chapters. But who was the Dragon God that he fought previously? Well, this is obviously spoilers for the 100 Years Quest anime because this will be core 2. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but here you go. So in the Alderone arc, it is revealed that the Wood Dragon God Alderone actually previously fought Acnologia, but he received serious wounds and both of them fought to a stalemate. Obviously because, stated at the beginning, they're on roughly equal power to Acnologia before he had that space-time rift. Now, the amount of time since that fight is still pretty vague and hasn't been fully clarified yet, but it has been a notable amount of years, and Alderone had kept himself in a state of stasis, making the Alderone cores, splitting his power and personality into all the different sections of the Alderone seeds, allowing himself to slowly regain his power and heal from the battle with Acnologia. So that's one Dragon God accounted for, showcasing that Acnologia could not take down Alderone in that instance, and he isn't even the strongest Dragon God. He is the largest Dragon God by far, that thing is enormous, but he is not the strongest out of the Dragon Gods based off what we've seen, but we all know that the Dragon Gods are roughly equal in power. And based off Ignia stating that the new character in the manga feels a lot like Acnologia, it's stated that Ignia most likely has either seen or battled Acnologia in the past, presumably to a stalemate as well. Acnologia has in fact fought the Dragon Gods before, or at least some of them. Other Dragon Gods are actually pretty keen on just staying out of each other's way and even staying in hiding. Doggermog was quote-unquote killed by Alefsir in the past, and basically helping to plan out for Ignia's future plans, but that's a whole thing in the Labyrinth arc. Selene can transcend dimensions, so if Acnologia is close by and she doesn't feel like fighting him, she can just teleport away and get away from Acnologia whenever she wants to. Mercphobia, he's more or less somewhere in the ocean in his own sacred temple. Based on context clues and how the area works, it is very likely that Mercphobia has been able to mask his scent through the sea breeze and the ocean waters, as well as the isolated area he's in, to keep himself from being detected, as well as the fact that he's kept himself isolated from his own town. Based off of information, Diablos wasn't able to find Mercphobia for a long time. It wasn't until Mercphobia showed himself that they were actually able to soon track Mercphobia to his main lair. So it's very possible that Acnologia was not able to find Mercphobia as well, even with his keen sense of smell. You can say the same thing for perhaps Ignia, or perhaps the same thing happened like I mentioned, they fought to a stalemate and they both retreated to essentially healed from their wounds. Viernus legitimately turned into a concept, so obviously he wasn't able to fight Acnologia, and the amount of time this has been could literally be 100 years. It's been a long time since Athena was sealed away, and since Duke originally was stated to have disappeared or have died. Duke is obviously alive, but that's a whole other matter. Viernus turned himself into a concept within the Gold Owl Alchemy Guild, which, since he is not a physical dragon anymore, Acnologia would not be able to find and defeat him. so that's already out of the question in terms of fairness. Doggermog was basically dead at that point as well within the last 100 years, so Acnologia does legitimately have no real reason to go out and fight the other dragon gods until he is strong enough to face them off. Shows the fact that, like I mentioned, the dragon gods tend to keep themselves hidden away and try not to deal with other matters. And Igneo's off doing his own plan, so he would obviously try and keep himself tucked away and not fight Acnologia until he was sure that he could face him off, especially because the dragon gods are not idiots. Sure, they can be prideful, especially Alderaan and even Ignea, but they're not idiots. They're not going to charge into a fight with Acnologia, the dragon that literally more or less caused the entirety of the dragons to be extinct within a 400-year time frame. And so they've all kept a balance of a whole stalemate throughout the centuries, with Acnologia going across to try and find other dragons that weren't able to hide themselves and slay them also. Now, people would also bring up why didn't Acnologia hunt down the literal guild of dragon slayers like he did towards the end of Fairy Tail. Well, here's the thing, Acnologia wasn't originally going after dragon slayers. Heck, he most likely thought he was the only dragon slayer left. But based on how things progressed, Acnologia didn't really view them as threats or as quote-unquote dragons, at least towards the very end. Notice the fact that Acnologia at the end of the series said that there were only a few more dragons for him left to slay could also be interpreted as the dragon gods as being part of that group that he has yet to slay. And with Diablos, we can only really surmise that it's been only a few decades since Diablos was not only founded, but also became a Dragon Eater guild, because there is no clear indication of how long ago Diablos was created or how old George truly is, but I highly doubt it's been more than a couple of decades, maybe 30, 40 years max, for how long it has been. Now, the other issue would be, what happened with all of the dragons on the Giltina continent? Well, based off of how Diablos is and the amount of members we've seen, chances are there weren't that many dragons hiding away on Giltina, and it's very possible that, due to circumstances, Acnologia, after killing dragons, perhaps George ended up taking these spoils, ate the dragon, and became a dragon slayer himself, and gave it to other characters, as it's very unlikely that they slay dragons without dragon slayer magic in and of themselves, and thus, while Acnologia was off doing his own thing, they would hunt whatever dragons managed to hide away from Acnologia, take their powers, sell off their heart to Lagrima, rinse and repeat. Now obviously, this is definitely the most borderline thin reasoning as to Acnologia not taking out all the dragons, but if dragon kings like the one that Kieran ate was able to be killed by a human but also be able to hide itself like the dragon gods, dragon kings are also incredibly powerful dragons, some of the highest ranking dragons like Igneo, the fire dragon king, so it stands to reason that they would find a way to hide themselves from Acnologia, especially considering that a lot of the dragons, like the dragon gods in Giltina, fled there from the Dragon King's festival to avoid getting killed and hunted by Acnologia himself. Plus, the world of Fairy Tail is very huge, so I doubt Acnologia was able to traverse the entire world and get rid of every single dragon as quickly as people may think. Because Acnologia is still human, still a living being, he would have to stop and rest. He is not a monstrous machine that will go up through other things without rest. Even the dragons as well would most likely have to go a long time before needing to rest, but that's just my whole reasoning for it. Diablos not appearing on Acnologia's radar falls under the same category as why the dragon slayers that we see in the mainline series don't fall under Acnologia's radar until the very end of the series. Acnologia doesn't really consider them most likely a threat or true dragons for him to slay, at least not until they reach a certain point. Because Acnologia's main goal is to slay actual full-fledged dragons. He can't really care much about dragon slayers until it is fully presented to him to take them out. And it's also very possible that Diablos just also tried their best to avoid getting the attention of Acnologia until some way, shape, or form down the line, they felt like being more riskier with their plays to find dragons and eat them to gain their powers. But yeah, these are the main reasons that I could come together through canon material and what's been stated in 100 Years Quest and even in the mainline Fairy Tail series as to why Acnologia has not hunted the dragon gods, taken them out, or has not mentioned or have done anything with the dragon gods. He does know about their existence, but since they're on the same level of power as him, they essentially fight to a stalemate for the majority of the time. And since the other dragon gods like Phobia and Selene tend to keep to themselves, they don't really find any need to take on Acnologia and don't really see the need to unless they otherwise stated. Alderaan fought Acnologia and was badly damaged, even though they fought to a stalemate, and had to suppress its presence in order to regain strength. Ignia is more or less hinted to have fought Acnologia in the past, and the fact that he's still alive proves that they also fought to a stalemate and had to retreat and treat their own wounds from their own battles. Selene can hop dimensions, Mercphobia can hide himself with the water, and mask his scent. That Mercphobia one is just context clues. Viernus, within the 100 years since Elefsir founded the first Wizard Guild and alchemy with Duke was stated, Viernus turned himself into a concept and essentially became a fake Duke, thus masking his presence as he wasn't an actual dragon anymore, and I doubt Acnologia will be able to sniff out a concept, as the Dragon Slayers could not sniff out Viernus as a dragon as well. So that is also out the water, and Doggermog was dead, keeping his consciousness somewhat alive within Elefsir's heart and flowing throughout the magical area in order to fully revive himself. And the idea that Dragon Kings or other powerful dragons that were offspring of other powerful dragons who weren't smart enough to try and hide their presence for as long as they possibly could until Acnologia found them does seem like a very reasonable thing to come to a conclusion for. Same with Dragon Slayers, like I mentioned, they probably didn't register as dragons to Acnologia just yet, but that's a whole other matter. That and the dragons aren't idiots. Acnologia is not an idiot. They're not going to charge head on to a fight until they know what their opponent is, and if they see things is not in their favor, they'll probably try something else. Thus, keeping a constant stalemate for however many decades or centuries there were since Acnologia reached Giltina, and perhaps that's also why Acnologia was not shown in Ishgard for periods at a time, as he would keep going back and forth in Giltina to try and find or even fight the dragon gods in those time periods. But that's just my theory and reasoning as to why Acnologia didn't beat or take out any of the dragon gods, or say to fight any other dragon gods in the main series. What did you think of my reasonings? Let me know in the comment section down below, and if you have any of your reasonings as to why this might not be a thing, outside of the obvious being that Mashima didn't come up with these ideas until he came up with the idea of 100 Years Quest, and thus pseudo-retcon some things. And once more, if you haven't already, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and shows you want to see more. I do want to do some more stuff about Acnologia, like I mentioned almost a year ago, but other things have taken priority, so look forward to more stuff on that at some point. But with all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.